Hello, hopefully you can see me okay. The sun is just shining through the window. I'm not sure how that's going to impact on the picture or not, but I just want to do a quick video on the distinction between Islam and Muslims with regards to criticism. I don't really think it's a distinction that needs to be made for the most part. A lot of people seem to go out of their way to criticize Islam, but then they completely separate Muslims from Islam. To me, that's a bit nonsensical. I mean, Islam, essentially, it's an ideology. An ideology is pretty much a concept. A concept, it has no presence in the real world outside of people making it into a real world presence, a real world manifestation. So Muslims do that for Islam. So in and itself, Islam is, it's nothing. The thing that makes Islam what it is essentially Muslims. So to me, to separate the two or to make the distinction constantly when criticizing, it seems a bit intellectually dishonest and a bit cowardly, to be frank. Now, I think what is worth doing is making a distinction between different types of Muslims. You basically have a devout Muslim at the very top, and then towards the bottom you have basically a non-Muslim or an ex-Muslim or non-practicing Muslim, and obviously between those two extremes you have different degrees of commitment and dedication to the ideology of Islam. Now, my contempt for individual Muslims, in terms of my contempt for their beliefs, will obviously vary depending on where each individual Muslim lies on that particular scale. If you've got a massively devout jihadist who wants to enforce Sharia and his aim is for a global caliphate, then yeah, that person is clearly at the top. Reprehensible, I'm 100% against. In reality, I want these people killed in battle. A lot of them are in battle, so a good outcome would be for them to be killed in battle. Then you have what I class as Islamists by proxy. Now, I'm not overly keen on the term Islamist either, but I think it is useful to use as a descriptor in terms of how devout a Muslim is or not. And when I say devout, I mean devout to core concepts of Islam. So devout to Sharia, devout to caliphate, and devout to the reverence of the founder, Muhammad, who of course is or was a paedophile, a murderer, a rapist, an illiterate, and warlord, and a slave trader, amongst other things. So if a Muslim is an advocate of Muhammad and his actions, Muhammad is claimed to be the greatest ever example of a man. If a Muslim is sticking to that story, that claim, then obviously I'm against that. Paedophilia, like raping a 9-year-old as Muhammad did, marrying a 6-year-old as Muhammad did, that's It's reprehensible. It should be condemned. It shouldn't be condoned or supported, irrespective of historical context. It doesn't matter if it happened 14 years ago or 1400 years ago. It should be condemned. Now, you'll find the Islamists by proxy Muslims, they are entirely supportive of Muhammad and the concept of his infallibility, and they will go out of their way to defend Muhammad and his actions. They are also supportive of Sharia. Now, you'll get people, Muslims, that will defend it more or less to a certain extent. What I mean by this is you'll get some Muslims that will say, yeah, Sharia shouldn't be in Britain, but then they'll remain silent on Sharia as a global thing in other nations, Islamic nations. They won't necessarily condemn it in places like Saudi Arabia or Afghanistan or any number of Muslim nations, but they will say, yeah, it shouldn't be in a Western civilization, and the law of the land should overrule any religious law. To me, that's a pretty low bar. I expect higher. I expect a decent human being to just outright condemn Sharia on the whole. It's morally reprehensible, repugnant. It should be disavowed completely. And then the other side of an Islamist by proxy is just the general support and sympathy towards jihadists and terrorists and the actions. So you'll get people that wouldn't necessarily do the actions, but they will in some way defend or justify the actions. And the last part of an Islamist by proxy and their outlook really is the general goal and aim of defending and propagating Islam. I mean, you get this from your mainstream high-profile Muslims such as Sadiq Khan, Naz Shah in Labour, and multiple other Muslims in the public eye. MPs do this pretty much regardless of political party, political affiliation. You'll have conservative Muslims do this. Saida Wasi, I think her name is, the former baroness in the Conservative Party. She basically came out and did that with her recent comments regarding Pakistani Muslim rape and the overrepresentation of that demographic. As I said, you have Labour MP Naz Shah and Sadiq Khan, and basically any Muslim MP of any note really, they will tend to lean towards these views and positions. So yeah, I'm obviously very much against and condemn Islamists by proxy. And then kind of the less serious type of Muslim, the non-devout, the non-practicing, they're basically cherry pickers. They will apply bits of Islam that they want to and disregard the bits that they don't agree with or aren't particularly fond of. And along with those types of Muslims, you also get the Muslims that are, for all intents and purposes, not Muslims, but they, due to the cultural stigmas attached to being an apostate, even in countries like Britain, they are reluctant to disavow Islam and come out as an apostate, an ex-Muslim. So they will just go along with calling themselves a Muslim even though technically they aren't, and they're not really fussed one way or the other. So yeah, that's it for classifications. Even those Muslims that do that, again, I'm also against them, just to a lesser extent than the jihadists and the Islamists by proxy. But they still hold bad ideas, they hold dangerous beliefs, and frankly untrue and backwards and barbaric beliefs, essentially Islamic beliefs. So in a nutshell, it's a stupidity thing. If you're against stupidity, then to some extent you're against a person espousing stupidity and falsehoods and lies, which is what Islam is. Islam is, it's false, it's dangerous, it's totalitarian, it's authoritarian, it's backward, it's barbaric, and it has no place in the civilized world.